taking in again the restaurant broiler burnt fat smell on my skin, charcoal under my nails, a place I worked 1973 burnt chile smell in my head when I cooked. Remember the long dinner rush. It never leaves your head. 1973, Chileans rounded up, corralled into the soccer stadium concentration camp. Over 1,000 disappeared, taking the wrong street home. Richard Nixon was their Leopold II. Henry Kissinger was their Hermann Göring. I'm recounting that night with my no-sleep look after a split shift. Someone should have insomnia about it. Someone should make a mountain out of another petty international multi-corporate molehill. Someone should ride the one tricycle wheel of what's left of the First Amendment and give it whatever the road can bear. 12 years later, I'm eating eggs up next to the Billy Idol of Ashland. I admire his belt with cartridges. I admire his pointed metal studs wristband. In our Ashland, you ran going through Gardner Park, canvas deck shoes, all I'd wear for a year after being outnumbered and beaten in Gardner. When I wore boots, they were zippered, cheaper than motorcycle boots, more flexible for running. We rationalized guys in motorcycle boots looked rank. Who was going to go up your leg wearing clanky-ass looking things like that? Snickering assholes and black tankers. We made them feel like shit. We made them feel like they weren't themselves. And black tankers, we sat low in pants that gripped everything. Everything that counted. We thought so. We fantasized out loud about this one's tight skirt, that one's full sweater, their unreachable shapes, mesmerism, tearing everything else out of our minds. 12 years later, I'm passing the salt to Billy Idol of Ashland, that imitator, those brass knuckles hanging on a chain, his white motorcycle boots of androgyny, though he looked a little mean under his androgyny. His girlfriend, her sleeping bag tied through black belt loops, his girlfriend with platinum eyebrows, platinum fur, steel-hooped belly button vines sprung over the folded down copper fly snap, fish hook necklaces, black fingernails of contempt for the adaptation mosquitoes I too scorn. I don't think they diagnose the disease they're sick of or even care to. I don't think they believe the conflicts will be resolved. Too many global banking crews resolving everybody's conflicts for now with their graveyard, grave taste, mass grave sexuality money. Too many of their private armies fixing everyone's conflicts now. In our Ashland, our night, in black tankers, our kickboxing moves, a black force, our black shells, our natural light, the London firebombing, Hiroshima, Nagasaki documentaries were part of our heads already. We lived with World War I widows in our fourplex, World War II concentration camp survivor flip-outs outside the bakery delicatessen window. Families disappeared in Ukrainian, Polish, Russian pogroms, Russian gulags, Russian madhouses, Tsar of Russia, Tsar Stetsko of Ukraine, Croatia Tsar Pavlicek was their Stalin, before Stalin, during Stalin. Pope Pius XII was their Thomas Torquemada. Ukrainian Cossacks were their Ku Klux Klan. Ukrainian Cossacks were their 325-year My Lai massacre. A genealogy part this. That neighborhood, mostly short-lived machinists, salesmen, seamstresses, waitresses, a few teachers, a couple of social workers, the Saturday matinee pedophile with a cane. That historical street, that Ashland, that ongoing. We combed our hair in mirrors that returned no blessings. Nose rings hadn't happened yet. Pierced lips and nipples, body art, headbangers, crackheads, teenage cutters, 10-year-old needle freaks hadn't happened yet. Tattooed gypsy and Russian skins crafted into gloves were the bitch fuck of Buchenwald's history already. The Idi Amin pull the pot, Condoleezza the Rice, Saddam the Hussein. Human bakery wasn't over yet. The million-something Iraqis, 10 years sanctions, withheld medical supplies, hadn't finalized its plan yet. I hadn't had the compassionate hallucination of Jesus nursing a dying Muslim drag queen yet. The massacres, mass disappearances in Guatemala, the Arab Final Solution version ongoing, the mourning, the photos, the bombing, the Lebanese civilians, the Warsaw Ghetto, the Palestinians hadn't begun yet. Death squad, de-brained Salvadoran priests, raped nuns hadn't sunk in yet. Croatian Nazis hung with strings of Serbian tongues. Croatian Nazis returning with bowls of Serbian eyes for sale. 1941, not a Bosnian Muslim would blame them. 2001. Nestle the Terrible hadn't poisoned to death successive generation of infants in Africa yet. The corporate corpsing ritual hadn't fully surfaced yet. The meltdown at Chernobyl, 70,000-something leukemia cases not reported yet. And I kept my family inside during the winds of Chernobyl. Who knows if it mattered like it matters? It was already history. Salvador Dali with those dexadrenal eyes walking a pet aardvark onto the Johnny Carson show during the bombing of Cambodia. I hadn't experienced the actualities and phantasms of impermanence yet, the end sooner than later. The meat hook hanging over the 20th century wasn't full yet. The book with Hitler's adulation of Disney hadn't been written yet. The story of Hitler oftentimes absent-mindedly whistling, "Who's afraid of the big bad wolf?" That he watched Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs repeatedly hadn't been mentioned yet. And that the smart aleck AP student remarked, Snow White, like who did Hitler identify with? The poison apple hadn't been blurted out yet. The book recounting that Ivan the Terrible, the serial gang rapist, serial murderer, was an excitable fan of jesters and clowns hadn't been published yet. The American torture addicts, after the Iraqi torture addicts, hadn't arrived at Abu Ghraib yet. The normalcy of pathology hadn't completely made its case yet. I'm talking with Billy Idol's fist, his bracelet of steel pins, his pit bull smirk, the guy with black plastic bags outside the coffee shop begging on the pissed ground, curses against U.S.-Israeli bombing of Lebanese civilians, graffiti the stucco wall that will eventually, temporarily, get whitewashed over. But wash, blood wash, no wash, it will still be there on the people's faces. In the mid-'80s, when I was in my middle 30s, I started to work in mixed media in terms of using drawings, cut-ups, photographs, whatever it was. This poem came about during a period when I was feeling a lot of grief about the war in Iraq. One of the things that I was trying to understand at this time in my life is the nature of violence and destruction. I started to look at my own self as a male in U.S. culture and how violence is something that we identify with. It's also a elegy / homage to our young people, and in this case, young men that had died. I began to cut out pictures of these young men who were all in the same battalion. I felt helpless. I mean, I just simply felt helpless, and the only thing that I could think to do was to cry out.